And welcome to the Startup Autobahn Expo Day. We will have lots of different breakout sessions happening at the same time. I hope and you might have joined us yesterday already and might have joined us also earlier today. If not, feel free to check out the other formats and the other sessions. Thank you for joining us today. We have an exciting roughly 50 minutes of content. And with that, I would already hand it over to Philip. And Philip, the stage is yours.
Cool. Well, thank you, David. So first of all, a very warm welcome to the UK Connected Autonomous Mobility breakout session. So I'm Philip Ironside from Zenzic. I'm the program manager for the Zenzic CAM Scale-Up program. And today is a great day for me. I'm so pleased to announce that we now are going to have funding for a continuation of the Zenzic CAM Scale-Up program. So I want to tell you about that program today. But the best way of sharing a good news story is to use the words of others. So in our agenda today, let me go to the agenda. We've asked some of our past graduates, SME graduates, to join us, who will tell you about how they used our program and the great success and benefits they get from it. And we have James Long from SML, who will tell you about using CAM Testbed UK and the great facilities that offers. And of course, we have Michael Talbot, who's head of the CCAV, Centre for Connected Automated Vehicles, who will tell you about how important CAM Scale-Up is to the UK. And last of all, we'll close the program with Q&A, a short period of time for Q&A. Okay, so just to start off, let me tell you a little bit about what CAM Scale-Up is, and that'll set the scene for our discussion later on. So, CAM Scale-Up, Zenzic CAM Scale-Up, is a government-funded program supporting startups and SMEs looking to deliver new product or service into the CAM ecosystem. And selected companies will receive a share of £500,000 worth of funding for testing and product accelerated delivery to market. So, the program is much more than just receiving the funding. What you get from the program is increased visibility in the CAM ecosystem. You'll get access to the UK's most advanced CAM testing facilities. I'd actually argue they're probably up there in the world ranking. Access to world-leading testing facilities. What you'll get is the credibility of putting your product into the real-world environment, and that leads you on to being hopefully investor-ready. And through our partners Plug and Play, you'll get access to a global investor network. Okay, so let me take a pause there and hand you over to Michael Talbot, head of CCAV, who'll tell you about how important this program is. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Philip, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm the deputy head of CCAV. I'm grateful for Philip for the promotion, but I'm not sure my boss would approve. But I'm leading on the industrial side of the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles. We were set up 6 years ago this week as a joint policy unit between the Department for Business and the Department for Transport. And we have, over the past 6 years, built our UK offer around and brought together the UK ecosystem of connected and automated mobility companies and organizations around regulation, research and development, and testing infrastructure. And as part of that, over this period of time, we've invested over £400 million in partnership with industry in over 90 projects. About half that sum has been invested in what is known as CAM Testbed UK, a collection of world-class facilities, 6 facilities, to take you from virtual, controlled, and public testing environments. But that creation of CAM Testbed UK was first sketched out in 2016 when there was a call for evidence. We set a consultation for industry and the wider public to tell us what they thought the opportunity was for connected and automated mobility for the UK, for society, for the economy, and for the wider world as well. And through that, one of the really important aspects that came through was about barriers to entry for small and medium-sized companies and startups, barriers to entry for access to testing facilities that they would need to accelerate development of their products and services. So this became a really important component of the policy design for this project. It's taken us a bit of time to find the right way of addressing this. We had to wait for the testing facilities to be built, and obviously those are infrastructure projects, that took some time. And it was a really exciting announcement last year when we were able to run, again with Zenzic and Plug and Play, we were able to fund the first scale-up, CAM Scale-Up cohort. And you're going to hear more about that. I think it's achieved more than we could have expected. It's been really exciting, and I think we're even more happy, and of course on the back of that, to be able to provide additional funding for the second cohort, which we are now talking about today. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about some of these great case studies and success stories. I've heard about a few of them. I probably haven't heard them all yet. And this is an exciting time to have those questions, because in the UK, we're now starting to develop our proposals into the centre of government about what do we want to do and what do we want to fund over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, and setting out that objective. And I think startups and innovation has to be a cornerstone of that. This is where all the ideas and talent and problem solving comes from. And I think there's some great strengths, not just in the UK, but in Europe and around the world. And I think we're keen to learn who those companies are, who those thinkers are, and then work with them to solve some of these great challenges and opportunities for transportation and mobility. That's all I wanted to say, and I look forward to listening to the rest of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm sure we won't disappoint with the reflection of some of the past case studies today. So let's get down to the program in detail, and we'll step back and look at the case studies. So I guess the first question is who can participate? Our program is designed for innovative startups and SMEs working in the connected and automated mobility sector, the ecosystem. Our companies need to be located in or locating to the UK. And our program will facilitate SMEs to join CAM from adjacent sectors. We can imagine that you've got a great product out there. It wasn't primarily conceived for CAM, but actually CAM is a great application for us. So we'd love to hear from you in that case. But above all, you've got to have a great ambition for this. That's what we want. Okay, let's look at the timelines now. So our programs run at pace, and that's really in the DNA of the program design, accelerating product to market, and we've seen that happen very successfully. And so we run at pace through this program. So we're announcing today, and it's just to raise awareness of what we're going to deliver. Come August, we will be inviting applications to Zenzic CAM Scale-Up Cohort 2. And through that application process, you'll be invited to go through a series of interviews, make a pitch, make a proposal before we announce sort of selected SMEs in September. Now, as part of creating that pitch, you'll have opportunity to meet our testbed partners, CAM Testbed UK partners. And that's a real great opportunity to meet the experts in the field here. From September onwards is where the real technical work starts. So you will be partnered up with companies from CAM Testbed UK, and we'll have the opportunity to do your testing, do your proof of concept with CAM Testbed UK from October through to February of 2022. Now, our program finishes at the end of March, but we reserve March for a showcase event. The most important thing we can do with the great work we do is celebrate it, put it on a stage and make sure it's recognized, so that we put a lot of focus on that end showcase event to make sure that your successes are visible to the right people. Okay, so let me introduce who we are, who Zenzic is. So Zenzic sits at the confluence of industry, academia, and government. So we bring together innovators and developers of intelligent mobility solutions, and in collaboration, and we facilitate, we support, and we're driving forwards the UK's emerging and connected autonomous mobility sector. And what we want to achieve from that is an ecosystem that achieves profitable growth. Okay, so I've told you who Zenzic is. Now let me tell you just a little bit about what CAM Testbed UK is. We refer to CAM Testbed UK as a single entity. In fact, it's a partnership of 6 key partners offering a range of facilities and services. Now, the capability that's offered there is quite vast. It starts off with the virtual environment, with simulation to allow product design, product validation before it even becomes a real product, something physical. And as we think about product development, product design, we want to move it out from the conceptual stage through into ultimately the end user market. And so what CAM Testbed UK gives us is that journey through the development stages. So from the simulation, the virtual environment, we can move into the physical environment. But that's a safe physical environment. It's off-road. It's where you can do the product experimentation, make mistakes, do the development behind closed doors. So CAM Testbed UK moves us from a safe physical environment to the public environment. Now, it's clear that a product must exist in the real world, where real people exist, where real situations arise. So we have a range of facilities ranging from the urban environment, highways environment, rural environment, and parking that allow you to take products from the concept right the way through to where it will sit in the end use case. And of course, all of this is underpinned by the data infrastructure, which is convex. Okay, so I can't tell you much more about Testbed UK and our program, but let me hand over to our graduates now to share their success stories, and you'll get a much better feel of what can be done through this program. So over to you, Steve Berry.
I think, Stephen, you are still on mute. So if you find a way to unmute, because I think I cannot unmute you. Still doesn't work.
Okay.
Is a chance to Philip to start with David and then try to come back to Philip? What do you think? Would it be possible?
Yes, let's do that. So if we move on to David from Helix. So whilst we help Stephen get online, David, would you mind sharing your story with us?
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Phil. I'll just indicate at the end of each slide with a next slide. So good afternoon, everybody that's on the call and is listening and watching, hopefully. I'm David Bloomstein. I'm the head of business development at Helix. Our company is all about the pioneering in the field of what we call dielectric loaded multi-filament helical antennas, but you can call them antennas if you wish. We are all about enabling the very real global need for highly resilient and high precision, I'm talking centimeter accurate, positioning, navigation, and timing. And our technology is naturally resistive to threats like spoofing and jamming in networks. That's by design and by construction. And as I said, we are highly focused on connected mobility applications. That includes, of course, autonomous vehicles and next-gen security systems to protect the aforementioned networks, especially as they get more and more complex. And in some cases, that exponential growth in complexity has tracked jamming and spoofing, which also has the abilities to break into these networks. So overall, our technology is highly suited, well suited to what we would call life and mission critical systems. Next slide, please. So, we have a clear and a highly worthy vision, even if I do say so myself, that we are here to solve a substantial global challenge for PNT, position, navigation, and timing. And the mission within our engineering team is to ensure that our technology provides the resilient and centimeter accurate position, navigation, and timing, or PNT. And this is all part of solving a multi-billion per day economic challenge. Position, navigation, and timing, FYI, is mandated by governments for mission and safety critical applications. And it's been measured as being worth about $1 trillion a day for economies who are dependent on it. And there are well over 10 billion products these days that are using PNT in one way, shape, or form. So it's really a critical part of infrastructure today. And so what we're trying to do at our level, you boil it down, is that our antennas enable this sub 10 centimeter accuracy in environments where the prime mechanism for position and accuracy, which is GPS, i.e. satellites, is being degraded by environments such as trying to operate in dense urban environments where there are tall buildings which are not very friendly to satellite signals being received for GPS, and this is part of our mission. What our team has built is a solid hardware business, and based on the experience of the senior leadership team, which includes sales of millions of antennas, and where we have built up businesses and delivered investor returns. Now, this is all great, and this all sounds like a nice story for Helix, and it is. But what we really needed to do was to convert the physical experiments and the project that we were working on, and needed to demonstrate those bold claims. And so it was an ideal time when we were connected with Zenzic on the CAM Scale-Up program, and it was just a perfect fit and a perfect timing for both company and a provider, which is Zenzic and its UK partners. Next slide, please, Phil. So we had to prove it, this third slide is really an excellent example of the proof points that we were able to demonstrate during the CAM Scale-Up program. This slide focuses on the work we did with SMLL, who are the Smart Mobility Living Labs based in London. We used both their facilities and their equipment, including an electric vehicle, which we'll talk about later. But what we were able to prove particularly in this slide, hopefully it shows it, is that our antenna maintains this PNT integrity when our competitors' antennas are lost. And what it's showing, most importantly, is that we're able to prove the benefits of our technology for low elevation satellite detection. The ability to lock onto a satellite as you're driving under a bridge and can just see slivers of sky and be able to lock onto satellites on the horizon quickly and efficiently and reliably and with accuracy is critical to providing positional accuracy. And if we then take that forward into the application it's targeted, i.e. autonomous vehicles, this is a really critical way of proving or trying to put autonomy into autonomous vehicles as they're developed over the coming years. And these two photos show that. The aerial shot shows you our antenna coming through the same bridge, which is the picture on the right, and the picture on the left shows how we maintained an accurate plot all the way through the journey, through the bridge, and that to the other side, and how conventional technology, using conventional patch technology, goes highly wayward. And of course, if you're applying it to applications like autonomous vehicles, those distances involved in the blue trace, that is absolutely the difference between life and death. Next slide, please, Phil. So that was our first, set of proof points that we were able to disseminate as a result of the Zenzic CAM Scale-Up program. But there were further what we call real-world proof points and benefits that we managed to successfully extract from the Zenzic program, both, of course, with Zenzic and the UK test beds. We were able to do a whole raft of in-house testing and validation. The SMLL vehicle, which I mentioned earlier, the usage of that, it provided the connectivity and a truth system, in fact, an inertial navigation system for our real world trials, as I showed before, which were conducted on in the harshest environments for PNT, which is dense urban environments like the streets and roads of London. And I think equally importantly, it gave us access to UK testbed partners who work with Zenzic. So as you can see from the slide there, we worked with Millbrook and the famous high-speed testing bowl, SMLL as mentioned, the Smart Mobility Living Labs, and also Hariba Mira up in the Midlands, which really, these guys were offered us, in most cases, world-class facilities and enabled these real-world proof points, which is what the whole program was about, taking our science project and helping to develop it into a real-world product with real-world demonstrable benefits that we can show to our customers and partners. Next slide, please, Phil. So, I'd like to summarize now, the what, the how, the why of the benefits of the CAM Scale-Up program, and why we found it so worthwhile, and why we think it's a good idea for all those who are thinking of joining or to go for it, And I would echo also Phil's earlier point when he talked about great ambition. This is really important. You need to have the ambition to do it. Because it takes some work to do. And as you can see from my first bullet point there, what we found critical to enabling a successful program once entered into it, it's not just about the funding, but it's about preparing a highly detailed test program. And we did that. We put the hard yards in. And then, the results from that were accelerated learning through real world testing. We figured it gave us something like a 12 to 8 month acceleration or advantage had we not participated in the program. So overall, highly worthwhile. And the 4 sub points there, the value of being able to properly demonstrate, your technology and its benefits to potential customers and partners. I don't think it's hard to put a value on that. The technology starts to become work hardened. This spreads further confidence into the engineering team. They can prove what they're doing and build on those results. And also, hopefully this comes across, our confidence when going to market and dealing with prospective investors, as well as customers and partners, and building the pipeline in this critical market of position, navigation, and timing, and providing hardware, real world solutions for it is I think the best benefit that we got out of it, and hopefully that will translate across to the different businesses that are looking at this program and considering application. It also enabled us to build long-term partnerships We're still very much in contact with Zenzic and the cohort of UK testbed facilities. We'll need to do further testing as our product is developed and new products emerge and are developed. And you know, from experience, known entities work together with greater speed and efficiency, which provides natural further cadence, further acceleration, sorry. And a raised profile, the promotion via plug and play, and this is perhaps a good example of that, helps the business as well. And it gives us messaging on third-party platforms. And, you know, again, it's provided some successful engagements with customers, technology partners, and prospective investors. A final slide, please, Phil. So I think just a quick thank you to Zenzic and the UK testbeds on behalf of the Helix team. We certainly achieved our objectives, improving our technology, improving the benefits of our technology versus our competitors, improving the effectiveness and usefulness of highly accurate positioning, geolocation that we enable through our unique antenna technology. It took very careful planning and preparation, and the aforementioned hard yards are critical in maximizing the benefits that you can get from the probing. But for sure, it's moved our company forward, and hopefully, and we believe it's helped move the industry forward as well. And the wrap-up dissemination event was particularly well received by both partners, prospective customers, and people who are interested in positioning, navigation, and timing, which stems everywhere in the world now, from governments through to actual users. Thank you, everybody.
Cool. Thank you, David. That was great to hear you getting on and seeing your success. So, Stephen, are you online? You are. Let me scroll back and we will hand over to Stephen Berry of Angoka.
I think he's still unmuted. Not sure if we can help at this point. I'm very sorry for that hiccup. I cannot unmute you, so not sure if there's a chance if we try it again, or if we skip it for now and try to put it at the end. But at this moment, I'm not sure how it's probably the system or the browser interface which is blocking it.
Thank you, David. We'll step ahead and step ahead to hear from James Long of Smart Mobility Living Lab on behalf of CAM Testbed UK.
Maybe now, Stephen?
Yes, I think it's working now.
Oh, now it's working. Wonderful.
Oh,
this is amazing. Finally.
It was somebody
great having you.
Magic fingers. Sorry about that. But no, let me pick up from what David said, which everything that he said I agree with in terms of a very similar experience that we had. But I can safely say that Zenzic was one of the two major highlights of this year. Our first major highlight was Angoka being recognized by NCSC and National Cybersecurity Center and GCHQ. And second, obviously getting into the Zenzic program, which I cannot recommend enough for companies that are in the mobility space. It's just given us a profile that we would not have had. I think David said that it has sped up their development and their recognition in the marketplace by many, many months, and we've had the same experience. So the main reason for us joining was to get confirmation of our technology on a real road environment, but we actually got more out of it than we expected. And the program gave us incredible credibility into the ecosystem. But let me tell you a little bit about Angoka. Next slide, please. So Angoka is all about IoT security, but we're specifically focused on the safety and resiliency of mobility within the smart cities environment. As you can see, and as you know, cities, mobility, very complicated in terms of number of touch points, number of variables that have to be made secure. And our technology is very suitable for better security in these environments. Next slide. So as you all know, there's going to be many connected devices. Smart cities and mobility environments have a great deal of complexity that's attached to it. There is overlapping networks in these areas as well, which increases the attack surfaces. And the present systems can't guarantee end-to-end security of the communication that's essential. What Ngoka's focus is not on the networks, but on the devices. So our security protects the devices. We give them a device authentication unit. And as a result, we're fingerprinting and giving each device a unique identity. And this enables trust to occur across untrusted networks. The analogy is similar to a mobile phone user in regards to accessing their bank account. So the bank has first to authenticate who you are. After you've been identified, the data is then encrypted. With the machines, which obviously is a much bigger market than the mobility market, the mobile phone market, there is not the luxury of a human brain, of course. And what our technology does, it allows for a degree of self-authentication and allows a machine to talk to another machine on a trusted basis. Next slide, please. So for the Zenzic program, we had already gone through a program funded by Innovate UK with the Work Manufacturing Group, WMG. And that was the first real test of our technology coming out of R&D, out of the lab at Warwick, which basically was around looking at a connected vehicle. When we heard about the Zenzic program, it was an opportunity to test our technology and take it beyond the stage we had with WMG in real life road environments. And the fact that it was being paid for obviously was a big added plus. So as you can see from the diagram, we're not just about protecting the vehicle. Increasingly, the issue is the connectivity between the vehicles connected to landside infrastructure, telecommunications, ITS systems, lighting systems. And what we're looking at is the use of our technology in all those variables and then providing much better security that's available right now. There's a particular problem globally in regards to the bridging of ITS systems into city systems. And there's been many hacks in Europe of good hackers, in this case, attacking intelligent traffic systems and therefore getting into the citywide system. So what we're doing goes way beyond the connectivity of the car. So next slide. So these are just examples of our team. As David mentioned, one of the great things about the program actually was a side benefit of our engineers being able to get outside of the office, in our case, get out of Belfast, come to the mainland, if you will. And these are just pictures of Ngoka branding at Millbrook, which was one of the testing sites, and which was very, very successful for taking our technology to the next stage. I wouldn't underestimate the ability, the outcome of engineers being able to see the produce of their work on site and actually seeing in action. And luckily, in our case, the performance was excellent. So next slide, I think that may be it, but I'm going to give a summary. Next, go back then, if you don't mind. So I was thinking about the benefits of the Zenzic program, and I would say there's 6 benefits I've come up with, not in any particular order, but the first one is exposure to the CAM industry and the ecosystem. So by being in the Zenzic program, we undoubtedly put ourselves on the map. We are now considered to be one of the leading security companies in the CAM arena, not just in the UK, but in Europe and around the world. I don't know, somewhat of a coincidence maybe, but certainly the profiling has sped up business development dramatically regarding the CAM marketplace. So number one was exposure to the industry. Second was the testing. Obviously, I'm, as chairman, I'm more concerned about the stakeholders and the ecosystem that we're involved with. But from an engineering perspective, undoubtedly, the program was incredibly successful. Slightly difference between Millbrook, which was more physical testing, and Hariba Myra, which was very focused on the compliance and regulatory and the resiliency of our technology. I can also say that from a fundraising perspective, both the senior directors of both programs have given us wonderful testimonials, which have actually helped us on our fundraising mission. How you quantify that, I'm not sure, but obviously it's worth a lot to the company. Third thing was international exposure. Because of Plug and Play's involvement, we actually, during the course of the program, entered the Plug and Play program in California, the Smart City Mobility Program, which I highly recommend. We also were engaged through Plug and Play with the Plug and Play program in Detroit. And as a result, we have excellent discussions going off the state of Michigan. So I can give Plug and Play a lot of endorsement for this. Third thing was corporate exposure. We have, as a result of the program, we are in talks with Thales, Siemens, ZF. We would have probably gotten to these companies at some stage, but no doubt the Zenzic program gave us a lot of credibility in terms of speeding up that process. The fifth one was one that we were not expecting. As a result of being in the Zenzic program, both indirectly and directly, we've actually hired several people who I don't think we would have been engaged with or we would have met with if it wasn't for the fact that we had the exposure through Zenzic. So that was a huge added benefit and excellent talent coming through that network. And the sixth thing, and not the least, is just the wonderful engagement with the Zen Zik team. Very engaging, fun, informative, and a pleasure to work with. I couldn't be more complimentary of what a great staff they are. And even now, with us having graduated from the program, we're still very much involved in the alumni, and they're still making introductions for us. So well done, team, and thank you for allowing us to be in the program.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stephen. Again, it's good to hear that you're successful on the back of this program, and again, thank you for your endorsement of your engagement with Zenzic. Okay, so once again, thank you, and last but not least, let's talk about CAM Testbed UK. And I'm going to introduce you to James Long, who's going to talk to you on behalf of SMML. Just bear with me whilst I find the slides. Here we go. Over to you, James.
James, you also have to unmute. I hope it works for you. Not yet. Looks like we have the same issue. So it still says you are on and not unmuted yet. Not really sure what is causing the problem today, but or what might have helped Stephen in the end to unmute. Maybe, Stephen, if you know what helped you, you can let James know. Otherwise, I would recommend to maybe try to dial in again. I think he tries to dial in again, so we have to wait maybe a couple of seconds until he is back. Here we go.
Okay, can you hear me this time?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Fabulous.
Perfect. Thank you.
Fabulous. Okay, who knows what's going on? The mysteries of computers. It's a good thing we're talking about high-tech stuff. Okay, so I'm James Long, so I'm head of technical consulting for the Smart Mobility Living Lab, and it's been such a pleasure working on the SME Scale-Up program with the likes of Helix, as David described earlier, but also RoboK in the last cohort. As part of our role within CAM Testbed UK, we've got the pleasure to work alongside, as Philip described earlier, a range of different organisations coming all the way through from data hubs and the data exchange environment with people like Convex, working through controlled road environments with UTAC and Hariba Meyer and Cavway, going through to the semi-controlled campus type environments at Coventry University and Race Cullen. And then finally, as solutions get closer to on-road deployment and commercialization, but also starting to understand the impact on people and place, operating in real-world environments and live road infrastructure with the likes of the Midlands Future Mobility and ourselves at the Smart Mobility Living Lab in London. It's in that value and partnership that the real capability comes into its own. There are lots of different activities depending on where organizations are in their development cycle, where their products are, where their services are, and particularly the use case that they're seeking to try and develop. But what I'd like to try and do today is talk a little bit about the infrastructure and the capabilities that we've got at the Smart Mobility Living Lab, and critically how we're working with different organizations to help them further development of their products. Philip, if you could move on to the next slide for me. Thank you very much. So we are a testbed facility based in East London, and that we've really been designed to deliver different activities to support companies developing their technologies, their services in the mobility space, to test those in real-world environments, to see how real-world users respond to them, understand how they meet those really challenging conditions. I think David put it very nicely, where we worked with Helix to really put their solution through its paces, looking at performance benchmarking in some truly brutal environments, understanding urban canyons, restricted and denied GNSS environments. And it's by bringing together those test capabilities where we've developed that based on different standards, the regulatory environment, but building the different capabilities associated with that. So testing is that first service base that we've really sought to specialize in. The next is around simulation. We know that such a lot of work is done in the virtual domain. It's critical and imperative from our perspective that there is a very, very clear link between digital twins and the real worlds that they pertain to, relate to, and the way that that starts to input into the validation process, whether that's looking at traditional V models or something different. And so we've invested significantly in our simulation platforms, both in terms of the environment, but also the way that we're bringing through data sets. So we're looking at how you start to simulate different scenarios, for example. There's more detail to be provided on each of these. But most critically, it's the organizations that we work with. We've got the privilege to work within SMLL with a wide range of different organizations, through from corporate organizations like Honda, Nissan, Cisco, and so on, through to different institutions and public bodies and research organizations, and with a progressively widening range of different SMEs and startups. And all of these groups are coming together, working with us, because they all recognize that nobody has a singular view of what the future looks like, that they all have something where they need to develop, they need to learn together, and that ultimately they all start to influence one another. And I think the Scale-Up program is a really nice example of how the learning, how the capabilities start to filter through, and that critical innovation is drawn through from the Scale-Ups out into the wider network. Philip, could you move on to the next one for me? So, as is the case with most public testbeds, we can't put a padlock and a fence around our infrastructure. We're on public roads. So we have 24 kilometers worth of route, or 15 miles, depending on your currency of choice. And we've instrumented this very heavily with a range of different sensors. Each of the yellow pins on the map is relating to somewhere where we have monitoring infrastructure to gather the evidence necessary to start to provide evidence to funders, evidence for further investment, evidence to develop and identify your next part of the developmental roadmap. We've identified the locations of our routes very, very carefully based on the complexity of those environments, the users that exist in those sorts of places and the types of activities they're performing on a day-to-day basis, to ensure that really we can support as wide a range of use cases as possible. We've identified around 1,000 unique instances in this network, and it's by being in a position to gather data to identify how that links through from applications that you might have tested in controlled road environments, progressing through to that nearer term commercialization that is such an important part of that story. Next slide, please, Philip. So we've invested in two main areas. One is in the test infrastructure, so in the physical environment. So as I mentioned, we've got 200 or so monitoring points. We've put in a very wide range of different sensors and connectivity to support that, which has been important from not just the hygiene factors of how do we get data back to our clients, how do we make sure that that can flow around the system appropriately, but also enables us to be able to gather evidence and manage things like latencies on networks. It enables us to undertake different types of tests. So we put in our own private fiber networks, we've got V2X infrastructure, we've got our own mesh networks and so on to enable people to start to look at different applications. And this links nicely to some of the capabilities that are in other locations, particularly in some of the controlled environments, around how you can start to see that progression from a more controlled setting, and then starting to understand the different factors that come into play in the real world. And David gave a couple of nice examples earlier of the interference that comes in. We've put in place a wide range of different physical facilities to enable testing to happen more seamlessly. We've made sure we've got the workshop spaces, we've got control rooms on the route, we've got office space, we've got our data centers, which are on-prem and scalable to enable testing organizations to come, everything's under one roof, it's immediately on our routes on the doorstep, and it's part of the community. And finally, as David pointed out in his presentation earlier, we've invested in open architecture automated vehicles. These can be used in automated mode in particular locations, but critically, they can also be used as fantastic data gathering platforms. And some of the work that we did with RoboK was a nice example of utilizing all the different sensor data as a benchmarking mechanism to start to look at the performance of other range-based sensors. David, Philip, if you could move on to the next one for me. Thank you. So as well as the physical infrastructure that we've invested in, we've also invested heavily in our digital twin and our virtual environments. I mentioned earlier that we built up the virtual environment to cover our full routes. We've made sure that we've got the different dynamic driving rules so that vehicles can truly drive in a way that is familiar with the location that we're working with. We've built up all the different junction models, the traffic models associated with this, so you can start to look at the impact that services have. We've linked this to other risk and incident tools, such as IMAP from TRL Software, which has been critical in both planning and managing trials so that we look at the safe and responsible operation for our activities, but also as we start to come through looking at the different virtual validation methodologies. And there's some other nice examples working with Zenzic where we've looked at interoperability across the test beds of how we bring together different best-in-breed capabilities to identify how they can start to drive different results. But that's a conversation for another time, perhaps. And most critically, we've identified that it's not appropriate just to say we've got synthetic data that feeds into that simulation platform, but we're taking real-world events, things that we can see from our sensor network, and converting those into different simulation scenarios. We know that such a lot of work now is done prior to physical real-world testing, that being able to enable those who might be physically located overseas, that might have other development centres feeding into the UK capability, that they can access the same activities prior to turning up on our doorstep. Can move on to the next slide for me. Thank you. So I wanted to give a couple of examples of where we worked with SMEs and scale-ups to date, just to bring a little bit more colour to it. So again, David gave a brilliant example of some of the performance analysis that we've supported Helix with, also RoboK and other organisations, to start to look at how their solutions perform in urban settings. We've done some very extensive work utilising our roadside infrastructure to start to build shared situational awareness. to start to understand the complexities associated with different road environments. And it's by understanding how that links to different types of use case, understanding what that unlocks in terms of the viability of different mobility services, that helps with that progression, as we've worked with previous organizations from concepts, early stage R&D through to the commercialization step, and evidencing that performance has been critical for previous clients. The connectivity aspect is one that absolutely should not be neglected. We've got the pleasure really of having access to our own private networks, meaning that we can start to look and compare both the real world impacts of all the different noise that happens in environments through to what happens when we can start to control those networks in a more comprehensive way. We've worked with clients in the past who have started to utilize that to understand all different trends and utilize the data to build their products out. And then finally, from a trial management perspective, we've got a great experience within SMLL and our parent company TRL in running automated trials and connected trials, and really understanding and distilling the evidence points to show that progression, to understand how that links in with regulation. And it's by taking that process, again, working with testbed partners, going from controlled environments like UTAC, doing initial testing, build up that evidence case to show how that then starts to map across into the real world environment. For me, it's been such a fantastic experience working with scale-ups and SMEs. I really do view them as the engine room, the critical innovators that exist within this sector. And it's interesting hearing the kind of key lessons and key takeaways that people have had. I think as we look across the sector, some organizations like this will scale to be players in their own right. Others are going to find other routes to exploit their technologies and capabilities. Others are going to pivot and change path. But it's the role of the scale-up program like this to provide those opportunities to develop the wares and show off what is capable within their particular technologies. And I think it's providing that opportunity is such a key activity area here to enable organizations to validate their claims, demonstrate that new technologies require further investment, that they can achieve their particular use case and so on. And it's really SMEs that are taking that proactive approach to engage in programs like this to progress and show independent, credible evidence of their development that helps to drive forward this sector. It's such an exciting time to be in this mobility environment because there's such a lot of change. There's such a lot of fantastic IP that's being developed. And the driving seat really comes from innovators engaging in these sorts of programs to further their development and that of the sector. So I'm going to finish my presentation there. It's been really brilliant to have the opportunity to do this, and I look forward to engaging with other SMEs as we move forward into the next few months.
Perfect. Thank you, James. That was very insightful. It's given us a great understanding of exactly what it means to test in the urban real-world environment. So thank you. Okay, so we've heard from two SMEs, Angoka and Helix, and we've now who've shared their journey and the benefits they've gained from the Zenzic CAM Scale-Up program. And we've heard from James, who's shared, given us great insight into what it means to test your new products in the urban environment and the amount of work that sits behind that. So hopefully, through the stories of our key users, you now understand much more about what the Zenzic CAM Scale-Up program. So I have to bring our session to a close now. David, do we have a few questions? Time for a few questions at the end?
I think there's one question. Thank you, Philip. There's one question from Martin to James. If his talk was regarding functional safety, ISO 26262. So I'm not sure, James, if you can read the question or if you can reply to that.
Yes, I can see it from Martin. I think that said yes. So
yeah.
Within we're very fortunate. So for Smart Mobility Living Lab, we do lots of work with our parent company, Transport Research Laboratory, and so we do a lot of work with ISO 26262, particularly in terms of system safety, cybersecurity. There's some really fantastic capability actually across the different test beds within the UK, and a lot of the ecosystem that we work with as well. It would be remiss of me not to point out some of the other organizations, both on a corporate level as well as within the immediate ecosystem. So I'd be very happy to discuss further about that. I think as we start to progress through those different applications, when you look at the use cases, it's really important to start to think about that progression through the different test environments, particularly depending on the type of work that wants to be executed, taking it through from controlled road environments where you can start to build that evidence case and then start to really look at the operational application as we go through. So Martin, more than happy to have a follow-up conversation.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Philip. I would recommend that we are also looking a little bit at the time. We are at the end of today's session. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. If there are follow-up questions, the hop-in user interface also allows to directly engage in one-to-one conversation. So feel free, if you have follow-up questions, to directly reach out to our speakers. Also, of course, via email to Plug and Play, and we're more than happy to connect you also later on. Of course, you are invited to stay with us for the entire day. We have lots of more exciting content coming up. So feel free to browse through the other sessions or jump back into the stage content. With that, thanks again for all the speakers. Thank you, Philip, for also setting this up and organizing. Wishing you a nice afternoon and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Plug and Play team. So I have to say, as a closing remark, we'd love to hear from anyone on the call, and yes, engage with the speakers, but also head to our website, zenzic.io, and you'll find out much more. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.